Welcome to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Brian Oser, the social media advisor for Dilatory, and I also happen to be a left below knee amputee. Let's get into today's episode. Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics invites all women to our second annual Women's Amputee event on Saturday, October 21st from noon until 4 p.m. at Chatham University East Side, located at 6585 Penn Avenue in Pittsburgh. This free event will explore mobility milestones and feature Chatham physical therapists teaming up with dilatory prosthetists to work in a fun environment with each amputee on learning to achieve mobility milestones. All attendees will receive a free t-shirt in their choice of size and color. To RSVP, call 412-599-1105, and please remember to include your shirt size and color choice when you call. And now, here's today's episode. How's it going, everyone? My guest today is left below knee amputee and rush rebel, Todd Domingo. Todd, welcome to revAMPd.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I first met at the beginning of August 2017 at the Amputee Coalition Conference in Louisville, Kentucky. We were in the certified peer visitor training together. And even though he wasn't in our class, I blame Fritz for our shenanigans and what happened that day. Our instructor, Ann, she threatened to separate us. I couldn't believe that. Threatened to separate us up. And for those listening who are wondering, like, what in the world goes on at the conference? What are you guys doing? Best advice, join us in Tucson next July and find out.
Absolutely.
You won't regret it. So you're left below knee amputee.
Yep.
What led up to you becoming an amputee? What was going on in your life at the time?
So this left below knee was done just January of this year. It's about 15 years of being in pain, constant infections, osteomyelitis that's happened, that infects your bones. And I just couldn't take one more infection. I had one more infection back in 2016, and I said, that's it. I've gone through this so many times. I don't want this anymore. And the only solution that we really have left is to amputate below knee. Now, I've had amputation, a bilateral partial foot amputation back in 2001 also.
Okay.
What led to that was a sepsis infection back in 2001 that, I was in hospital for about almost 2 years. And coming out of that was the partial foot amputation bilaterally. And then, like I said, with the multiple infections and everything else that's been going the last 15 or so years, trying to live an active lifestyle, it was just becoming too much of a hassle, if you will. And I really couldn't live a full life. So my doctors and I decided that it's the only thing left to do at this point, and so we went ahead with it.
Okay, so wow, I didn't know that's January. Wow, you have done. As we get into this, people are going to see you've made a pretty good recovery here. What was your process like post amputation? How long was it between your amputation and the time where you're healed enough to get fit for a prosthesis?
So it was really quick. The treatment that I have is not usual, I guess. When I've seen people post online and stuff, and even in the city in Toronto, where I'm at, the different, there's different journeys, different levels of amputation, different sort of recovery. 3 days post recovery or 3 days post amputation, they already had me on physio, doing hopping, walking on with a walker on bars, and just getting strength training. 2 weeks after that, so about 10 days after that, I got casted for a prosthesis right away using a check socket. So even though I still had staples, I already got fitted for a prosthesis. I was already a good candidate for a prosthesis. So as soon as that came in, physio just took off from there, getting strength, strength build up, and then started walking really.
That's amazing. Here, in I don't want to say here in the United States, because I know people that have been through a similar process to you. In my story, it was like, well, you can't be fit for a prosthesis until your staples are out and you're completely healed. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like in your situation, them getting you in that temporary socket and getting you moving, it really helped you in your recovery process. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely. I think had we waited a little bit longer, I don't think I'll be where I am. So I do owe that a lot to them. And I have said that to them as well, in conversations. I think with us pushing right away like that, focusing on getting better and getting healthy right away, I think that helped a lot, for sure.
So you were dealing with these recurrent infections, for quite a long time. And, it comes to the point, I'm sick of having this happen. We've got to do something else. Well, the answer is amputation. But did the amputation itself still have a negative impact on you for losing a limb? You mentioned you already, bilateral half foot, but what was, how did it progress for you to lose, half your leg, basically?
You know what? I hate to say this, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of ding for this, but the decision was really easy for me. I was really choosing a better life, if you will, with having it removed. I couldn't imagine another 15 or 20 years with a feeling of my foot being crushed every step that I take. So just when we talked about it and I've made a decision in my head going, I think I'd like to venture into this unknown and just go with it with the full heart of saying, you know what, I'm just going to get past this, and this is my journey, and I'm going to make it to be a positive thing instead of thinking, well, I'm losing a limb, woe is me. It's like, you know what, I'm doing this to have a better life, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. When once you moved on and you got your staples out and everything, when did you first really become active again? Because I know that you've done some 5Ks.
Yes. So going, I get that question a lot when talking to other amputees in the peer support groups. I went into my recovery with that in mind. Starting really from I just want to be able to walk my dog 2 blocks without crying, to now I have a prosthesis. What can I do with this prosthesis? And so it's like, well, I want to go back to running. So when I, in conversations with my physiotherapist and my care team, it's like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Right off the bat, I said, I want to be able to run, if not this year, next year. And we designed a workout or physio sessions that was really based off of obtaining that goal. I didn't tell them that I was going to run a 5K a month after being released from hospital, really. That was totally unknown to them. So it was kind of a personal thing that I made, a personal commitment I made to myself, that I said, I got to do this, regardless of how long it'll take me to do it. I just need to run this 5K. And that rush and that feeling of accomplishing that was enough to drive the next one and the next one after that. And I really run about 4Ks now since my amputation.
Wow. You mentioned that you wanted to be able to walk your dog, a couple of blocks without being in pain, without crying. How has your dog responded? Because, a lot of us that are amputees, we have dogs, we have pets. Some of us, we've had them before we became an amputee. How did your dog react to all of this?
It's actually quite interesting. Instead of him pulling me, I now pull him. He and I went on a 6K walk on Saturday morning.
Oh, nice.
And my dog does this when he's tired. He does let me know in his subtle ways that, I'm getting tired. But last Saturday, he literally pulled me aside and he lay down on the ground, and no matter how I tried to pull him, he just will not budge. And so I figured, okay, well, I got to pick him up now because he's not going to move at all, or I'm going to drag him across the ground and people think I'm being cruel to my dog.
Right.
So I had to carry him on the last 2 kilometers of our 6K walk.
Wow. So we had said at the top, we had said that you and I met at the Amputee Coalition conference, which this year was in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yep.
Tell me about your conference experience. What was the overall experience like for you?
You know what? I'd like to think of myself as an experienced amputee, being an amputee from 15 years ago, but there was a bit of shame and some almost sort of hiding that came with that amputation. This amputation was different in that I think I grieved my limb before I even went into the amputation. We were talking about that earlier, about how, like how I took the loss of a limb. This loss was different for me in that I wanted to move forward right away. And so when going to the conference, it really totally opened up my eyes to, that everyone goes in there with a different experience. But when you're in a group like that, with everyone as an amputee, you just feel normal again.
Right.
There's a sense of pride that came along with it. I walked proudly with my head held high, along with other amputees, and not worry that someone was judging me. Because there's that feeling of being judged when you walk alone on the street. So I think these conferences are great because, again, it's a short time to feel normal. And I've seen people post that online as well about the feeling of, air quotes, normal, because this is our new normal. I know it's easier said than done to feel that normal when you're alone in the community. But when you're in a group like that, boy, does it just boost your confidence.
And, you're absolutely right. It does, because one of the things, it's not like when I go to the grocery store and someone's like, oh, you're an amputee, where at the conference, everybody's an amputee pretty much. And so, it's not like, oh, you're an amputee, I'm an amputee. Oh, well, let's feel sorry for each other. It's not that at all. Like we're having fun and engaging with each other and drinking probably, and, all sorts of.
Well, the thing, my friends asked when I came back and said, well, what do you guys talk about? And I said, it's funny because we don't say, hey, you're a left below amputee, I noticed that, or, what do you do? I said, it's like talking about cars, like just guys being in a room talking about cars. It's like, oh, I have a rush foot, or I have this foot, and my foot can do this, my foot can do that, or my arm can do this and my arm can do that. It wasn't about, I think there's that initial of how did you lose your limb, but it wasn't, it wasn't sort of the deal breaker in the conversation, or it wasn't the icebreaker, I should say.
Right.
It's more about just like, again, just that whole feeling of being social with each other in a community and just talking openly about the amputation and the things that we use and the things on how we adapt to things, as if it's a normal conversation everyone is having. Right. That you would normally have with your friends who are not amputees.
Right. Absolutely. And you mentioned, we talk about the hardware and what people are wearing, and you wear rush foot.
Yes, sir.
And if I remember correctly, you're in the High Pro, right? Which used to be the 87.
Yes.
Okay. How have you had other feet, and how has the rush foot helped you?
I have not had other feet. My process that I really decided on what activities I wanted to do and what best foot to be in for what I wanted to do. So my criteria were running high activity level, high impact activity levels, and the breaker of it all was going to the beach. I live near the water. I walk my dog along the beach on the weekends. I go to the beach. I travel where there's a beach. So that sort of, put the rush foot right at the top there as our choice of a foot. What it's done for me, I'm going to be honest here. The minute he put it on, and I had a sash foot when I was training.
Okay.
To walk. So moving from a sash foot to the rush foot, I literally gave my processist a hug and cried. I cannot tell you. I don't even remember what a normal foot feels like.
Right.
It's been so long since I've had like a normal feet. Really is what I should say. But just the energy return on the foot, and just the comfort of stepping down and just the feedback from it. It's like, dang, I wish I'd known this 15 years ago and had this foot, because it's the most comfortable thing that I've ever felt. So comparing that to walking and then pain in every step that you take to now it's like walking on a cloud, it's a whole 360-degree turnaround for me. So I literally gave my process a hug and I cried. I'm like, I've never felt so comfortable in my life.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I have nothing but praise for Rush Foot. I started with the 87, or they call it the High Pro now, and moved on to the Rogue. And so, and it does. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's a game changer," and for me, it's been a life changer because I've never worn another foot this comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. I believe you.
And so it is. So huge shout out to Rush Foot. And you can, anybody that doesn't know, anyone that's listening doesn't know, you can go back episode 1, and we actually have some guys from Rush Foot on. So check that out, and they'll give you the rundown on their feed and what they're doing. So I know one of the other things that I mentioned briefly at the top that we did at the conference was we participated in the certified peer training. And so, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. It was ridiculously silly at times. And I think by the end we were off the reservation. But all that being said, I think we learned a lot about that. What is your view of being a peer visitor and why that's important for amputees?
You know what? So again, I go back to from 15 years ago and wish that I had this kind of a support because I left that surgery and that amputation kind of feeling alone and like I said, in hiding almost, and self-shame, going, oh my God, I'm an amputee now. Now that I'm a peer visitor or certified peer visitor, it not only changed me as an amputee, but I'm hoping that when I meet with other amputees, new ones especially, that I'm changing their lives as well, and I'm making it a better, not saying a better experience for them, but sort of making the journey a bit easier. I know a number of amputees that I visited post the certification, has been thankful and really, just having someone to talk to about their experience, so they don't feel alone. What I find is when you get out in the community, it's like, I don't see another amputee now, so I don't know how to relate to them. And yet when you go back to rehab and you see all these amputees, you feel as though, okay, well, here's a community. So just having that outreach, I think, is important in the recovery, because you do feel better about, that there is light, at the end of the tunnel. Listen, I probably shouldn't be talking about another peer, but I visited a 31-year-old who thought he was never going to play soccer again, never going to stand again, and yet, and just 2 weeks ago he went to a wedding and he danced.
Oh wow!
And he said, you know what? When I saw you walk down to meet me, he's like, well, dang, that guy is walking like as if he's got 2 legs, that are not amputated. So, even if I give that slight, hope for people to see, you know what, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's life after amputation. You just have to get past that woe is me victim situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And we see it all the time, I think, in groups. And I know, I think sometimes, me personally, I struggle with this because I'm like, I'll run into somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, I've been an amputee for 7 years and I'm just sitting at home in my wheelchair. And I just want to be like, dude, what the heck?
Right.
Like at some point, we make that decision that, I want my life back. And I want to be able to go and do things. And, I know we're all on a different journey. All of us are in different places in our journey. We all have unique challenges and obstacles and things that we deal with and face. But if I learn nothing else at the conference, for myself, it's that, life after amputation goes on, and it's possible to have a very rich and full life.
What's really sort of more of a light bulb for me was watching the kids at the conference. These are such resilient people.
Right.
You see them 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're running as if nothing happened to them. Right.
Yes.
And so it's that attitude that you have to take almost and just go, you know what? I'm given this situation because I'm either going to be a better person for it, and hopefully you will be a better person for it. And really, I look at my situation this way. I said, you know what? I'm given this situation because I can deal with this. Had it been given to anyone else, they probably won't.
Right.
Just going in with that attitude and go, you know what? I'm going to prove everybody wrong, 1. And 2, I'm going to rise above this situation. And so I think I'm a better person for it. And if I can encourage and motivate other people and inspire people to be better at, at being either being an amputee or being, something else, whatever situation it is that they're in, I know the journey that you're talking about and
right.
conversation, but I think there's something that has to click in your mind.
Yes.
We talked about mind over matter. Just something has to happen in your mind to just say, you know what, I can't be just this.
Right. Yeah. And, you're right, because, and two things that come to mind. One, when we were at the conference, I tried to get in the pool as much as I can. That's my thing. I love to be in the water. And I swam with this little boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, who was a quadrilateral amputee, the happiest kid I've ever encountered anywhere. And, his dad was swimming with him and he was doing fine, having fun. And then dad lets go and this kid just swims, quadrilateral amputee, not wearing any prosthesis in the water. And I was just blown away. And I thought, man, there's days that I feel, that I kind of feel down and I'm just, left below knee. And here's this young kid. And that was one of those moments where you realize you can do anything.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's that. It's like you see that and you get inspired by it, and you're like, you know what, if they can do that, why can't I? And so I think it's just that click in your head that just kind of go, you know what, let me try. I think that's important to just go, let me try. Let me find a way to adapt to something that I either used to do, would love to do again, or I would love to try out just because.
Right.
It makes me happy. I think that may be a key. I'm not I don't have the answer for everything, but I think that's the key. It's just, you're just willing to try.
Absolutely. That's it. And speaking of trying, one of the things I know that you did at the conference was to participate in the Oser running clinic.
Yes, sir.
That they had. What was that experience like for you?
That was great. I actually learned a lot from there. So I've done 2 5Ks prior to that running clinic, and to learn the tips from Travis, and the coach's name escapes me right now, but just to learn the techniques and how to time and pace yourself when you're running, the proper sort of lift techniques now that you're an amputee to run properly and not hurt yourself was. I try to put that in the running that I do throughout the day, or in my day when I run, and just keeping those techniques and exercises, they do help and they do protect you from falling and hurting yourself really. So I found it really valuable. And you know what? Again, the camaraderie and the fun of it all, like just we had like a game at the end where everybody participated, whether you're a new runner or an experienced runner. Again, from all ages, from kids all the way to I don't know how old the oldest guy was there, but it didn't matter. It's just everyone cheering everyone on. And that sense of community, I think, is far more important than actually the running itself. But certainly getting the techniques, getting the information on how to run better, how to run properly with your prosthesis is a great information always.
Sure. So, we've run through your story and where you've been and where you've come through. What are some of the lessons you have learned about yourself through all of this?
That I'm stronger than I thought. I think that about sums it up. I've always been a hard-headed person, and I knew that. So I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I wasn't going to take a can't for an answer. So I've always known that about me. But, putting your prosthesis on, there's a physicality of it. I don't know if you know what that means. Like there's the actual feeling of having an appendage attached to you, right?
Right.
So there's that alien feeling, and then there's the weight of it. There's like the physical weight of the prosthesis, and then trying to learn and walk with it on. And then just really, there's that strength that comes from the physical that I can do this, and there's a strength that I can get over this, I think. And that just, helps me push forward with everything I do every day. It's like, no, I'm again, as I said, I've always been a hard-headed, no is not going to be an answer. I just got to push forward. So I think with this amputation, it's about, it's about being present and being, I don't know how to, it's just being in the moment and then looking for what I can do next.
Right. Absolutely. And, I mentioned to you, we constantly see amputees who, some they're struggling, or they're depressed, or they're lonely, or afraid, or whatever the emotion may be that they're experiencing, because they haven't progressed in their journey to where some of us are, and maybe they're new amputees, or, whatever their situation may be. But what advice or encouragement would you have for other amputees?
The only advice I can think of really is, I know, again, you're said than done, and you don't want to say, oh, just get over it. You go through the motions, but I think more importantly is you look at what else is there. Mm-hmm. I tell people not to focus on what the disability is, what the amputation is, and what it will limit them. What I say is, you know what? I get it. We're all amputees. I get it. You do worry about the look. You worry about, what you look like, how people perceive you, and all that. But I think you can change people's mind by what you do as an amputee. So I always say to them, look forward. What can you do now that you have this? The adaption of my limitation is not my limitation. I'm going to go beyond the limitation.
Yeah, absolutely. So today I have been talking with left below knee amputee and rush rebel Todd Domingo. If you want more information about Todd, you can connect with him on Facebook at Road Warrior 07. Todd, thanks so much for joining me on revAMPd. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you've enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review on iTunes or give us a like on Facebook. I'm Brian Moser. I invite you to visit our website, www.revampedpodcast.com, and connect with us on Facebook at revAMPd Podcast.